Have you embraced radical individualism? The universe isn't just out there, it's interacting with you. Claim your power by embracing the unknown. This is Tracy with Tracy Talks, and I'm here to ignite your curiosity. Don't just listen, embrace it. I want to ask a favor. Please share and like and comment. It really does help get the podcast out there into the world. It's interesting when I look back at my childhood, and oftentimes people are predisposed to see things in a particular way. And we can easily divide that into people who are positive and see only the good things. And then there are people who are considered negative and see all of the challenges and the quote bad things. And it's interesting that when you start reflecting on your childhood as an adult, you see circumstances very differently because you have maybe become a parent yourself. You understand what your parents could have been going through, money, job stresses, changes that were not being spoken about, but certainly being felt. And as a child, you are just witnessing the adults work through their own life. I grew up with a parent who I would like to describe as a radical individual. And my father was someone who had created his own interest, his own hobbies, and was extremely passionate about those. And he wasn't someone to sit around and say, well, I am passionate about gardening. And there was never a discussion about his passion. He didn't have to say the words, I am. We all saw it. We all witnessed it. We all lived it. And oftentimes when you are in a relationship with a radical individual, and you yourself are not an individual, but yet rely heavily on a partnership for identity. Meaning, my dad was a radical individual. My mom craved partnership. And oftentimes, you could see the differences. You could witness how different they really were. And now it's interesting as an adult when I have looked at how I have partnered up with people. And they say opposites attract. And in certain instances, I really do see that because here I was witness to very different types of people who were willing to work together and create a life. You can see sometimes when someone who is so devoted to partnership is working and in relationship with someone who is at a very core an individual, it feels like rejection. It feels like you're constantly reaching for someone and they don't see you and they don't hear you and they don't witness you, and you don't seem and feel as important as you really want to. And I understand that there is a balance to everything and that you still can be a radical individual and make time in your schedule to cultivate a loving relationship. But now that I'm looking back on my childhood in a different perspective, I have enormous amounts of respect for being witness to someone who had this individualism coded into their DNA. So much about this world right now is we have these individual devices that are attached to us. And we are interacting with this community of people. Oftentimes we become dependent upon the likes, the comments, the shares, the acknowledgments, and we become so dependent upon our external world. We create these external worlds for others to see and for others to witness. And a lot of times people say, well, I'm doing this for me. This is all about me. What happens if this external world is no longer there? What happens when you have a career change, when you have a relationship change? What happens when you move? Have you created the individual inside of you? Have you cultivated and grown your own interests? Can you be with yourself and not spiral in thoughts? I am someone who requires a significant amount of individual time. Like, I need individual time in my own energy to recover, to restore, to renew. And it's interesting when I am interacting with people who like to be out in public and want to be interacting with somebody all the time. And I hear the comments about, oh, you never get out. And sometimes I really want to say, you know what? I'm good. I don't need somebody to validate me. I don't need a schedule. I don't need somebody to tell me what I want to do every single day. And I consider that radical individualism. If the world as we know it started to change, would you be okay being more isolated? And I think we realized this a few years ago, that a lot of people were not okay. But what if you took small steps every day just to do something that you love? I know that sounds like such an easy thing to do, but in reality, it's very difficult to do. And from my own experience, when I get up the courage to share sometimes what I'm doing with people, I don't get the responses that I hope to get, that people don't understand. And so when they don't understand, they say things that kind of kill your spirit. Because so many people would never just consider sitting down and doing something for no reason. Why would you just do that and not have this end goal or this reason? Why would you just do that? And so if you have those types of people around you, you receive that feedback, and oftentimes we can stop doing those things. We can change our habits to accommodate the people around us. I actually tapped into this energy yesterday, where I just wanted to spend time painting. I hadn't painted since I moved, and I moved in February. Because I didn't really have a space for my supplies. I didn't have an area set up. I didn't have this designated area where I could just go to. And it had turned into this whole big thing. And yesterday, I got the supplies out and I just painted. I just tapped into this energy of expressing myself with no clear goal, with no clear reason, just because. Just because I wanted to express myself in a different way. This seems like such an easy thing to do. If you are in a partnership with someone who doesn't understand radical individualism, Like if I'm in a relationship and they're like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? There's weeds out there in the flower bed that need to be pulled. There's things that need to be done. Why would you just spend time painting on a canvas just for the fun of it? I have been in those relationships. I have done that. I have shifted how I express myself in this external world. And what I don't think people understand is there's also this internal world that nobody sees, that nobody knows about. And that so often we are so focused on the external world that everybody sees, that everybody knows, and we really do judge people on this external world. There is so much more inside of me that nobody sees, that nobody knows about, that nobody actually witnesses. And I am okay with that. I am okay with creating this internal version of Tracy. I am okay with developing that and cultivating that. I don't get likes. I don't get shares. I don't get comments. And I think it's important to realize the difference there. It's important to realize and cultivate that this internal me is good. I am someone who is extremely comfortable being alone. And there are times where I do have this feeling to get out and interact. But if that doesn't happen, I have interest. I have a world inside of me that I also work on, that I also develop. I was listening to one of my creators that I listened to recently, and she was talking about Chat GPT and how she is not using it and thinks that it's going to lead to people not having an original thought. My first response to her post was, I have family members who never had an original thought. I have extended family who were living their life based on a biblical and religious doctrine from an early age. There was no original thought there. You didn't think an original thought outside of the church. You were not allowed to explore a deeper meaning and understanding of anything. You were indoctrined to live by the Word and the Bible, and there was no interpretation. In some cultures, in some areas, there is no radical individualism. There is no developing of the self outside of a group or an organization. But what happens then? What happens when the structures that we live in start to crumble and start to disintegrate before our very eyes? What happens then? We get lost. We get scared. We lose ourselves. When so much of our emphasis and focus is placed upon our external world and creating this environment, this structure. But what is the individual? Who are you? Who are you without the relationship? Who are you without the network of people? Who are you without the job? Who are you without all of these external structures around you? How can you take a small moment in the day and create an internal world that no one knows about? How do you create a structure in your life that is so solid and grounded that it doesn't matter what is happening outside of you? How can you create a daily practice? Is it meditation? Is it walking? How can you do these small little things that are just for you, that you can do every day to feel safe, to feel secure? How can you become a radical individual? And it's all of these little things that we do. And we don't get the likes. We don't get the comments. We don't get people cheering us on. But there is this intrinsic value that is there. I'm not happy with myself when I don't have my daily walk, because I know it's important for my health. I know how important it is for me, and nobody has a schedule for me. Nobody sets that schedule. I see this radical individualism still present in my life. And at this point, my dad is in his mid-80s, and he still, on a daily basis, works the ground. He is in the garden, hoeing the weeds by hand. Nobody else set the schedule for him. Would the corn stop growing if there was a couple of weeds in it? No, it wouldn't. But he has actively cultivated a life of being a radical individual, of setting standards, and being okay with not going along with the group, or not following the trends, or not doing things just because everybody else is doing them. And in a world right now where so much energy is devoted to creating these elaborate worlds and posting pictures on social media, what happens when we just do something because we want to do it and we don't share it, we don't announce it? How does that feel? Thank you for listening to this episode of Tracy Talks. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe, and share with others who would enjoy listening to this podcast. Friends can find Tracy Talks available on iTunes, Spotify, Substack, and YouTube. Hit me up on Instagram and Facebook at More Tracy Talks. And until next time, we meet again.